skills tested.
Is that what you're doing?
Mm-mm.
But yeah, no, it was just expensive. And what I was paying for an apartment, I got a house and a 2-car garage, and
Which is needed.
3 bedrooms. I got a workout room, and yeah, for what I was paying for a 1,000 square foot apartment.
Yeah. See, I could never do the workouts at home. The motivation is, for me, that's what's lacking.
I've never needed that.
Really?
Like, I've always been able to just work out on my own. Like, in law school, I worked out on my own. For me, it's a time to, like, it's almost like meditation for me.
Mm-hmm.
Some people do yoga. Some people take their dog on a walk. Some people read a book. I like to work out. So I've never really needed motivation, but I've always been a pretty self-motivated person too. So yeah, like, and also too, as an attorney, as I'm sure you know, hours and time is, you know, you're keeping track of your time every 6 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to be as efficient with my time as I can. So if I can work out at home, I don't have to drive to the gym 15 minutes. I'm not waiting for equipment. I can just finish my work, walk downstairs, work out for an hour, walk right back upstairs, and do whatever.
Yeah. See, that's the part for me. The walking downstairs part. It's like being at home, just being in that environment. I don't have the ability to motivate myself to go work out. Like, it's like, I don't know what it is. I have to be in an environment where it's like that collective energy. Everyone's here for the same thing. We're all here. We're grinding. We're getting our workout in. It's the only way I can motivate myself, which sounds counterintuitive.
Yeah, I mean, I miss it. It's definitely like, because I've been going to gym. So I went to, obviously, when I was in undergrad, I was in track team, so I worked out with them. But after that, I always went to gyms, and it was nice to like be around people who were also working out. But for me, it was just I just want more time back. So it's just a big time thing for me. There are definitely positives of going to the gym, and I still go to the gym for like treadmills and stuff like that to get some cardio in. But all my lifting is done at home.
How do you figure that part out as far as the time? I mean, obviously, like you said, being an attorney, time is everything. I mean, you guys are what, 0.10 of an hour. You guys bill. So, what like, how do you figure out for yourself what things are important from a time perspective? How do you go about that process?
You just have to axe everything that doesn't really matter to you, I think, and just really. So I guess since I've been an attorney, my time has been way more like restricted, and I spend more time working. You really put more effort and time into the things outside of work that you genuinely enjoy, and that takes a little bit of thought to really figure that out. Because people do, I mean, there's all kinds of things you can get into that take up your time, but then when you narrow it down to what you really care about or what you really enjoy, it's a little bit easier. So for me, I get up early. I'm an early worker. I've been an early worker since I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. I would do homework before the bus came.
No way.
Morning, yes. when I was like,
dude, we're trying to make you look cool on this show, man. We're not like.
I'm not trying to say it's better or worse, but like some people are night owls, right? So some people say, oh, my brain doesn't turn on until 7, 8 o'clock, and I'll work till 1 a.m. For me, it was like I would get home from school when I was a kid. I would complain to my mom. I was like, I'm tired. I don't want to do homework. She's like, all right, you can do it in the morning before the bus comes. I was like, all right. So I would wake up at 5, 6 o'clock, do a couple hours of homework, and go to school. But that's just how I work. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I do. So I wake up early, get my work done by like 5 or 6. I can go work out. And that pretty much leaves me the rest of the night to decompress, spend time with the girlfriend, make a quality dinner.
Are you the cook at home or
no?
No, because you guys live together,
yes,
right? In Oak Park.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. So you're not the one who does the cooking. Is
I
that
mean,
by choice or
I can
is it...
cook? Just the way our schedules work out. So she's in school still.
Okay.
So the way our schedules work out, I spend typically a little bit more time actually at work than she does at school. So she, pitches in with some of the housework, a little bit more of the housework, a little bit more of the cleaning, just to keep things balanced. That's just fair, I think, and she's fine with it. I'm fine with it. It works, and we're happy. Normally she cooks. Every once in a while I'll cook, and then she'll get mad when I cook a little bit better. She's like,
So it's a time constraint thing. It sounds
yeah,
like.
yeah. So everything in the house is like, okay, how can we be most efficient with the time?
Okay.
If I'm not doing something, can you pick up slack somewhere else? And vice versa. If you're not doing something, I'll pick up slack somewhere else, just so we don't have to, spend as much time doing stuff we don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then we both tackle those, different household projects, whatever, to make sure we have enough time to spend with each other and relaxing or whatever else it is we want to do.
Hold that thought one sec. Hey, Franny, can you check to make sure this one we're recording on it? Make sure it's still going. Just check the screen real quick. Okay, we're good to go. That'd be the worst if it wasn't going. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got her on board with the whole efficiency idea.
It's a little difficult starting out, but when you get into it, it gets to be like a rhythm almost. And then it just clicks. It makes sense. And then by the time 6-7 o'clock comes around, we're both done with our work. She's done with her school. We've both eaten. We both worked out. We can sit and watch Netflix or sit and unwind or something like that. Because that's also very important. You can't just work. You need time to unwind and, for me to sustain, myself and not burn out at work, and for her not to burn out at school, you need that time to unwind.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. But how did you learn that? Because from what I understand about law school, you went to where'd you go to law school? Notre Dame. Yep. Okay, so St. Francis undergrad. Joliet. Shout out Joliet. Do you know I live in Joliet? Did I tell you?
No, I didn't know that.
I live in Joliet,
you from the local?
Frankfurt, which is about 2 towns east.
Yeah.
Joliet.
Yeah.
But I live there now. It's a nice quiet area, and near the racetrack. So we'll.
Oh, okay. It's convenient.
Yeah, it's very convenient. As a matter of fact, some weekends I can hear the racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear people ripping around the track.
Yeah.
If I'm not out there, it makes me a little sad. I'll admit.
Right.
So how do you? The whole concept of not burning out, like, do they teach that in law school? It seems like from what I hear, it's mostly about how do you write a brief? How do you structure your workload? But talk about, like, how have you developed the ability to learn how to have a healthy balance between your work life and the personal activities that you like to enjoy?
So when you first go, at least from my experience, when you first start law school, you go through like a whole orientation, right? And basically they say all the, alcoholism is big in attorneys. Like that's an issue in our industry.
You guys that.
Yeah,
wow.
That's like day one. Like, so because of that, because of alcoholism, because of depression in our industry, all these other personal issues that the demands of the industry can sometimes cause, they say, well, you have to manage your time. You have to have an outlet. You have to figure out how to deal with stress. And they repeat that throughout all of law school. I don't know if you know the American Bar Association repeats it. I mean, you have continuing legal educations, call them CLEs. Those things repeat it. And you get that message all the time. But you have to do it yourself. Like, you can only be told the same thing so many times. So I really learned how to manage my time. And I really learned the importance of managing my time and having time set aside for my own personal, interests in my first year of law school. So prior to law school, I ran track for 10 years, right? Which means I was always exercising, at least once a day. Kept me right, kept my mind right, all that kind of stuff. First year of law school comes around. It's a challenge. I'm reading more than I've ever read before. Learned that I might have been a little dyslexic, never diagnosed, but I learned that reading. Yeah.
Just the retention aspect, retaining.
Ever since I was little, I could not retain anything that I read, which does not work.
Might be dyslexic too. Then.
Which does not work.
I find myself just like rereading the same lines.
Yep.
Especially when you're tired.
Yes.
It doesn't help.
Yes, because I remember getting a little sidetracked. My first law school assignment was like a 30-page assignment. It took me like 8 hours to get through. It was brutal.
Jeez.
So I learned how to read in law school.
Okay.
It's
incredible, man.
It's working. It's working. I learned. It was difficult, but it's working. Anyways, so my first year of law school, extremely challenging. I had no idea how to manage my time. I tried exercising. I tried, eating right, but it just went to the wayside because I just didn't know how to, wake up early. I didn't know how to set time aside to, take care of my assignments and then force myself to still go do the things that are important to me. So my diet wasn't right. My exercise was just way off. And for me, that doesn't work for me because I need to eat right. I need to exercise in order for my mind to be right.
Sure.
Um, so at one point I was like, I got through the first year and I did okay. My second year I was like, okay, like that can't happen again. So I really just made an effort just to be like, I can spend 4, 5, 6, 7 hours a day reading, but I have to get my exercise in. I have to eat a quality meal. I have to spend time with my friends. Like I treated those things as musts or as requirements versus optional things that I would do. And yeah, once you do that, you just figure out how to make it work.
Did any of your family? I'm curious if they noticed the lack of you refilling your social battery, and was that any of that apparent to them?
Probably probably the first year. Obviously, when you go to law school, it's all new people, so it's nobody saw me before and after, so they wouldn't really know the difference. But I remember talking to my parents about it. I mean, the first semester was just brutal. Everybody goes through it, but it's like I wanted to drop out. I wasn't enjoying it. I hated being there, just because it was such a shock to me. And then as time went on, as I learned to prioritize my personal interests and my professional educational interests, things got better and they worked out.
No kidding. So you didn't drop out?
No, I didn't. I wanted to multiple times. I'm glad I didn't.
I can imagine. That's a tough workload. I mean, just everything about law school.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine from the work that you're doing, brand new environment, new people, and then also that feeling of, you see your peers appearing to be doing just fine on the outside and not knowing where do you fit in that mix.
And you don't know, and I don't know if you know, but the thing about law school is there's no like exams throughout the semester. There's no assignments. Really? It's one test at the end of the semester.
Oh man.
And that one day you have a bad day, your grade's not going to be great. If you have a good day, it's fine. But like it's all rides on that one last exam.
Really? Yeah. So is there any grading throughout the entire? Are you serious?
A handful of classes there are, but that's a minority. Yeah, vast majority, I'd probably say at least 80 to 90% of classes are just one exam.
Okay, so how do you feel about that as far as now that you've been practicing for 2 years now?
I'm going on 4 years.
4 years. Yeah. Okay, so as a now practicing attorney, you're an associate now, right?
Yep.
Labor and employment, right?
Yes.
You're working on. So now, given that the fact that you're in the trenches, you're doing the work, do you feel that that's a good structure, having that? I mean, you're not getting that constant feedback throughout the process. I guess you can talk to your professor and he would tell you, whether he thinks you're on track or not. But really, the rubber doesn't meet the road until that last exam, it sounds like.
Right.
So you feel like that's a good
No.
No.
I mean, that's almost a commonly known, like, not commonly known, but like a lot of people think that it's not the best way to learn. I think it's been like statistically proven or science. I don't know how they do it, but somebody proved that it was not the best way to work, or the best way to learn. Why it's continued on, it's beyond me. I'm not in charge of law schools. It gets the job done. Maybe people just don't want to change. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that are in agreement that that's not the best way to learn.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, given that that's the track that you were on, and you obviously went through that grueling process. Now you're practicing. You're not sure why it's that way. What do you think? I mean, I would imagine you probably have people you met in law school that you still keep in contact with. Do they feel that it helped them or held them back learning in that way?
It's not something that really gets discussed all that much. I mean, you'll hear it mentioned that like, because I think it's called the aristocratic method, and they'll say, the aristocratic method isn't the best way to learn, but no one really like complains about it. I mean, it is what it is, and everybody's smart. I mean, I had a lot of Ivy League graduates as classmates, and people just kind of deal with it. It is what it is. So.
Yeah, I could see why. I mean, you said that alcoholism, depression. It seems like the accepted theme really is just buckle up.
Yeah.
Strap in and get to work.
Yeah, just get in, do as best you can, and get out and move on. So
it makes me wonder if someone was thinking ahead. I would imagine, being a practicing attorney, that's probably a lot of what you experience. I mean, the client doesn't really care, I would imagine, most of the time what the social circumstances going on in your life are. It's like
Mhm.
there's a matter, and you're the person who's going to
Right.
make the problem disappear for them.
Right. I mean, that's yeah. I mean, that's not unique to the legal practice, though. I mean, when you go to a restaurant, you want them to serve you food quick, quality and clean and all that stuff, and you don't care what is going on. I mean, maybe some people care. Hopefully, you care at least about the human side of the people that you're paying, but a lot of people don't. So that's not unique to us, but yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a wild concept
Mm-hmm.
that you're just expected to produce,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to deal with that. But I mean, obviously, I think at the end of the day, a lot of motivation for many people who find themselves in the legal profession is one, the autonomy of being able to handle your cases in a way that you see fit, or the way that you believe will deliver the best outcome. Then obviously, the compensation, that's got to be a big part of it. Was that a driving factor for you, or how did you come to the decision of
So
becoming an attorney?
yeah, so not entirely. The way I came to a decision for coming to be attorney, for becoming an attorney, and I normally lie about this because it's embarrassing. So I will tell you the truth. So you should feel lucky. So no, I was
Absolutely.
a senior in high school. We were in like our civics class or whatever it was called, like a government class. And we watched a movie. It had a lawyer in it, and that's just what I was like. All right, that's
Which
what
one
I
was it?
want to
Legally
do.
Blonde?
No, no. It was not Legally Blonde. I want to say it might have been the Lincoln Lawyer movie, and I haven't seen it since then, so don't quote me on it. It might have been that movie. But it wasn't because I wasn't drawn to it because, you get to make a ton of money and drive a fancy car and, argue for juries. For me, it was I really appreciated the way, and there was a scene in the movie where whoever the main character was, it was literally over 15, maybe 10, 15 years ago. There was a scene in the movie where the lawyer just got in front of a judge and just laid out his client's story so articulately and so persuasively, and that's what really drew it to me. And to me, it was kind of like a puzzle that the lawyer was solving in front of the judge, in front of the jury, and he put the puzzle together in a way that made his client look, good.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I don't remember details, but that's what I remember. That's the impression that I got. So I was like, oh, that's pretty neat. I like logically thinking. I like problem solving, and that's just the direction I went. Got through undergrad, took some like government law type of intro classes, nothing major. Went to law school, and yeah, and I've enjoyed it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So the question we want to know
Mm-hmm.
is, does being an attorney make you a more effective, persuasive? Can you create a better argument when you're arguing with your significant other?
100%.
100%. Yeah. Is she aware of that? Did she tell you you're doing the lawyer thing again?
She just, yeah. I mean, she doesn't, not in those words, but yeah. She'll just get upset and be like, well, why do you always have to be right? And I'm like, well, I don't know.
Well, it's just because Exhibit C, right?
Well, exactly. I only pick arguments I know I can win. That's why it creates the illusion that you're always right, because you only pick arguments that you know you can win. Yeah.
But see, that makes sense, because being an attorney, it's all about, like, the facts are the facts, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just you're highlighting ones that you want to bring to light, and then you're, I don't think the word suppressing is the right word, but you are ignoring or choosing to focus on the ones that the points that are going to make your argument stronger.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can't ignore facts. You can't suppress them. If there are bad facts, there are bad facts. But you're telling it. I would say, when you're obviously telling it persuasively, but two, from your own perspective, right? That makes that's favorable to your side. So I mean, yeah, that's probably the best way I could describe it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's life. I mean, everything, you argue stuff every day. Like, you go to work. I mean, people don't realize it, but people argue about stuff every day whenever you're trying to convince somebody about something, or convince somebody to do something, or convince somebody to see something your way. You're presenting an argument.
Absolutely.
So
there's I can't remember who it was. I think it's a sales trainer. It might be Grant Cardone. But he mentioned that every single interaction, you're either selling or being sold to.
Right.
So when
so along the similar lines,
someone of your viewpoint, you have to pitch them.
Yeah, same point, different words.
He mentioned that his biggest sale of his life was actually with his now wife.
Mm-hmm.
He had to convince her that he was the guy for her. right?
Right.
And he's going through this
Right.
process of meeting her, and he's like, you can't just jump straight to the, the features and benefits. You have to find out what their
Right.
value system is and what's important to them. And I'd imagine flipping this all back to
Yeah, I mean,
being an
yeah,
attorney.
I mean, same, like I said, same point, just different words. And now that you mentioned sales, I actually wanted to mention, so I think one of the most influential things that happened to me in my young life was working at Best Buy. 'Cause I was
Geek Squad, or
no,
Okay.
I sold TVs.
okay, was it Magnolia they call it, right?
Yeah, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, the home theater, all that stuff. It taught me how to talk to people. I was 16. I mean, it taught me how to sell things at 16. It taught me how to talk to the public at 16 years old, and it's Joliet, so you have every type of person under the sun that will walk into that store,
Absolutely.
from rich businessmen to drug dealers to people who have like $15 to their name.
And sometimes the rich businessmen were the drug dealers too.
Occasionally, yeah. But I mean, you could tell, because some people would come in with a credit card and just buy 10 grand worth of stuff, and some people would come in, dressed who knows how, with like a giant stack of cash like that big. And it's like, oh well, I don't know where you got that from, but it probably may not have been a credible employer, is all I'm saying.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it taught me how to talk to everybody. It taught me how to think on the fly. It taught me how to sell things. Sometimes sell things I didn't really know about.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a great foundation for me to build, my career on, because I'm, like I said, you're almost selling or convincing someone of something every day.
Especially, I like what you said about it taught you how to sell things that you didn't know about, because I remember back in high school, believe it or not, I took a criminal justice class and we did a mock trial, and it was the Three Little Pigs, or Three Little Pigs. Is that the story? Three Little Pigs,
I mean,
where they
I think so.
huff and puff and blow your
Right.
house down, right?
Yeah.
The big bad wolf. So we were putting the big bad wolf on trial. So my job as the prosecuting attorney was to prove that he's guilty of his crimes of killing these pigs, right? And the cool thing about it was this was like a 3-week project. We had to go through this process, putting together our arguments. We had to do the whole was it counter arguments, or no, not, I'm sorry, not counter. What is it called when you give the other person the ability to try and disprove what you?
Just like counter arguments, or they like counter evidence. So did you have like witnesses or anything?
We had
like that?
witnesses, yeah.
Yeah, so they'll like cross-examine witnesses.
Cross-examination, yeah, exactly, right. See, I knew you'd
Yep.
know the term, yeah. So either cross-examination. The cool thing about it was, like, after this 3-week process, we go through, we do this mock trial, and then the teacher said, okay, Jay, prosecutor, you're now the defense attorney. So now you need to argue for his innocence. And I'm like, what? I spent 3 weeks trying to prove this guy is guilty. Now I got to go back and prove the opposite. So it was such a cool experiment, because it was like, it really taught me that, especially nowadays in the information age, you can find out whatever you want on Google. And if you type in your search in a specific way, you can skew the results, rather than typing in, is the sky blue, typing in, why is the sky blue, you're going to bias those results towards people who are saying the sky's blue, and this is why. So it taught me to think a little bit more critically. And I'd imagine, back at Best Buy, when you're selling things that you didn't really know about, it forces you to focus on the facts of the matter, and then being able to provide a persuasive argument to the person who's there.
Right. And that, I mean, when I worked there, it was all about figuring out what the customer wanted and using whatever you knew about the product to fill those needs or wants. So I mean, that's what it boiled down to.
So tell me a little bit about. I understand you did an internship with the DEA.
Oh, I did. You did your homework.
Yeah. What all happened there? How did that all evolve?
Yeah.
Because there's got to be some juicy stuff there.
I mean, not as much as you would think. So I grew up
trained you well.
I grew up in a law enforcement family. So my dad's been in law enforcement since as long as I can remember. I needed an internship while I was an undergrad, which are a little bit harder to find, especially with being political science. There weren't as many. So I went and did that one. He had you knew a guy, I think, that worked in the DEA or something like that. So I worked an internship there. Because before I was doing law, I was also considering going the law enforcement path.
Okay.
So I did it, and it was still useful. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but I knew that I didn't want to do law enforcement.
Really?
Which is honestly just as important as anything else. I mean, learning what you don't want to do in an early age is really beneficial, obviously, because then you can steer away from it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do a whole lot. It was not a very glamorous internship. Did a lot of just like paper shuffling and things like that. We did. Gosh, I'm trying to think back now. You know, we would hear stories like they would, you know, come into the office with stuff that they would get from the field that was just kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing too crazy though. It wasn't the most glamorous thing in the world. So
I could see maybe it would help you while you were at Best Buy. Is that how you were able to identify the drug dealers?
No,
DEA, did they train you? He's a trained professional.
That's just from growing up living in the Joliet area, and seeing TV and just kind of having common sense that people with very flashy jewelry and large stacks of cash probably don't work Panera Bread.
Yeah.
Or anything like that.
So you go to the DEA, you find out law enforcement is not for you. How did Pops take that? Was he?
I mean, he was fine with it. I mean, he wasn't like he never pressured me to go one way or the other. It was just an option. He could expose me to it because of his experience.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I appreciated it.
Yeah, you can swap. Maybe just swap the other battery, but you keep going.
Okay. So. No, he wasn't like you know, upset about or anything. It was just something that he'd always done. He exposed me to it. He's definitely proud that I went to law school. So I mean, no hard feelings or anything like that. Yeah, it was nice to see that side of the world, see that side of, you know, how law enforcement works and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I grew up in the law enforcement family. Dad opened the door for me to at least get exposed to it. Wasn't feeling it, so law school was my other option. Don't want to say a second option, but another option. Yeah, and I went with it. And like I said, there's no hard feelings. He was not upset or nothing like that. So.
So I guess in the whole process of switching over to, you know, having your path becoming an attorney, what did that involve? Any changes to any other aspects of your life, from a social element, or did it derail a lot of the other plans you had, or modify how you're going to accomplish it?
No, I don't think so. I made, like I was saying earlier, I made a really strong effort to keep up with my exercise, but I also made another effort to be a little bit more social. Because like when I was an undergrad, I was in track, and that takes up a lot of your time. You get right. You can't really go out partying and drinking and stuff like that, because obviously if you drink, your body's not going to be able to perform at its highest level. So when I went to law school, I was like, you know, okay, so I can, you know, I don't have to be a track athlete anymore, so I can maybe socialize a bit more and spend a little bit more time doing that. I'm not working out twice a day, things like that. So I made a really good effort to really focus on my social skills and build them up, develop relationships. Excuse me. Develop relationships with the people there, learn how to develop relationships. But no, I don't think it really derailed anything else in my life. Just made me focus on the important things, like I mentioned earlier. Made me focus on the important things and made me really spend more time cultivating the important things.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds easier said than done. I'd imagine, especially being, I think we're the same age, 94. Not 94 years old, but born in 1994.
I could tell.
Right. So, well, you know, hey, I age really well for 100, right?
Yeah.
You too, by the way.
Yeah,
exactly. So, but I mean, how did you keep yourself centered? Because this is something that, you know, as a young man growing up, a young black man growing up, you know, how do you, I mean, obviously the social element's really important. There's a lot of other things in life that I would imagine you would probably want to do, but prioritizing your career and, you know, what is the secret for you to being able to stay focused towards what you knew was the end goal for you?
See, like what motivates me, or
not even necessarily what motivates you. I mean, there's just so many, there's so many things that you could get involved with, some which may not be productive towards, you know, becoming an attorney and, you know, build up the social, your social life in the way that you would want. There's you know, there are shiny objects that they may look good in the moment, but they don't help you in the long run. So how did you avoid those things and stay focused on that path that you need to be on?
Yeah, you know, I think I'm a little bit of an oddball there. Being focused is never something I had to focus on. Like it's just always came natural to me. I don't know why, but it always has. I mean, ever since I was actually thinking about this in the way here. So ever since, gosh, I want to go. This probably dates back to like high school track. Junior year, I was pretty decent. I ran 4x4, so four guys ran 400 meters fast at the time. So I ran my junior year. I didn't make the team, or I was on the team, but I didn't make the actual 4x4. I was the fifth fastest guy. Left a bad taste in my mouth. Come back senior year, I worked my ass off. I worked really hard. I ended up being the best guy on the team that year, and that's what really taught me the value, not the value, but the lesson that you will get out of life whatever you put into it. Track is about as clear cut as you can get. I mean, if you work hard, you put in the workouts, your time will improve. And there's no gray area with track because the clock doesn't lie. If you're faster than this guy, you're faster than this guy. There's no eye test. It's not like football or basketball where, opinions can differ as to who is the better athlete. Track doesn't work that way. So putting in the work, I put the work in, I became, better, I became faster. I learned how to focus. And I remember my coach telling me my senior year is that the biggest difference in me that he saw was that I was just way more focused. So yeah, I mean that's kind of where it stems from, and I've just tried to I don't know if translate's the right word, but I tried to use that skill or use that lesson in pretty much everything that I've done since then. So it's just come easy. Like I've never been huge on distractions. Kind of like what I was saying earlier, I really give some serious thought as to what matters in life, what makes me happy in life, what I enjoy doing, and just kind of everything else is noise. And once I achieved that, everything just became so much easier. Things make sense. Things are clearer. Yeah, that's pretty much how I did it.
Yeah, it's an interesting statement that you or concept that you bring up. There was just a video I was watching. I just do this. I watch these like nerdy videos. You probably do the same way. I know we on a lot of the car stuff that we talk about, find that out somehow. I learn a lot of the things through YouTube Academy.
Yep.
And this video was talking about success and how do people develop success in anything in life. And it was a really interesting analogy that they used to demonstrate the process of becoming proficient in something to the level of being successful. And basically the variables that they said you needed was a consistency in the environment. So you have to be able to test, but you need the certain factors to remain the same. So like the environment can't change between runs. You have to have that control.
Right.
But then also they said luck was part of it as well. And then I can't remember what the last variable was, but it's not important to the conversation. I just think about, when I think about those things, it really become, based on what you're telling me about law school, it's the exact opposite. Like you don't have the ability to get, I remember the third variable. You need to be able to receive timely feedback.
Oh, yeah.
So between your attempts, you have to be able to get feedback in real time. Did I do well? Did I do better? Did I do worse? It's like track. You talk about, you do the workouts, you go out, you run, your time improves, you get that feedback right away.
Exactly.
The conditions are the same, you're the same person, you're running the same distance, and you get that timely feedback. And then maybe there's like luck, like I don't know, the wind was blowing a little bit that day, and
genetics. Some people
Absolutely.
are just. Usain Bolt isn't the world's fastest man because he worked really hard. It's because he worked really hard and he had the perfect genes to do so.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's like people oftentimes forget that with athletes who use steroids to enhance their performance, it's still a hell of a lot of work that you have to do to be able to get your performance to that level. You don't just inject the I never did. I don't know whether I think you inject it. I think you actually have to inject it in your butt. I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
And anyway, whatever delivery method is necessary for it, you have to put in the hard work to be able to get to make those results show up.
Right.
So it just, it has me thinking about law school. It's like you're missing an element. Like by having the learning take place in an environment that it sounds like it's mostly consistent. So you have that going for yourself, but not being able to receive that timely feedback. How do you rank and how do you measure your own performance against yourself when you're not getting that consistent feedback until the very end, where now something you learned in the beginning of your law school career is now coming up on this test. And you get the question wrong, but you're not sure because you haven't been able to receive that timely feedback throughout the entire process.
So I guess two ways you can really look at it. So during the class you don't, right? So during the class all you can do is do the readings, take notes, talk over with your friends, see what you retain, see what they remember that you don't, see what you remember that they don't. Otherwise, there's really no way to receive feedback or to have a benchmark as to what you should know versus what you do know. But if you zoom out a bit, law school is 3 years long, so you take multiple exams, so you can kind of, your feedback along the way kind of is each exam for each class. Does that make sense? So while each class is substantively different, you're applying the same study methods to each class probably. So you can say, well, I used in my first class I used study method A, and I got a B plus, right? And then you can go to your second class, you can say, okay, I used study method B. It's probably a little confusing, but you get what I'm saying. And then you say, well, I used a different study method in my different class. I got a better grade. So you have to kind of zoom out to be able to do that in law school. You can't really do it within a class. And yeah, I mean, that's essentially what I did, is I learned how to study between classes as opposed to during the class. Which kind of is unfortunate because you don't really get a second chance at that class. So I mean, if that study method didn't work, it didn't work out, and that's just going to be your GPA. But I mean, if it was easy, everybody would do it. So
sure.
Yeah.
Is that a driving force, you think, for you? Do you find yourself attracted to challenge or things that are seemingly, I won't say impossible, but things that are difficult, things that the average person may shy away from? Is that something that pulls you in closer?
Yeah, I mean, within reason. It keeps things interesting. I mean, it keeps you learning. It keeps you striving to get better. Not everybody can be, the Michael Jordan or the Tom Brady of their craft, which I definitely don't try to be the very best lawyer that ever lived. But I just try to get better. I try to challenge myself. I try to improve where I can. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a driving factor. Just to always be better, because if you're just doing the same thing every day at the same level, like I'm a third-year associate now. Like I don't want to be working at a third-year associate level in 10, 15 years. So
yeah, and so you're at McGuire Woods now.
Yep.
Right, so your third year is, from what I understand, typically, the process of going from associate to a partner is about a 7-year process, give or take.
I mean, it varies depending on what firm you are. I mean, I've seen, so I was at a firm before, the process was 10 to 15 years. There's tons of variables. But yeah, probably earliest I've seen probably like 7, 8 years, and some people never want to become partner. That's an option for a lot of people. Yeah, typically though, between the 7 to 10, maybe 15-year period.
Okay, so is this somewhat of an anomaly to be doing labor and employment work, litigation work as a third-year associate? Is this somewhat of an anomaly?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's an anomaly. It's a smaller practice group. So if you don't know, so lawyers are, well, actually, I'm sure you do know, lawyers are not all the same. A lot of people think lawyers know everything about all laws, which we don't. So prior to this, I was just doing what's called like commercial litigation, which the way I like to sum it up is basically when companies are suing each other over, whatever. Most of the time it's like contract disputes. For me, that wasn't doing it for me. So I wanted something a little bit more focused. Because when you're doing commercial litigation, you don't really focus on any type of law. You're just focusing on whatever law your client needs, which normally is contract issues. And for me, I wanted something a little bit more substantively focused, so that's why I went the labor and employment route. There's not as many associates that do it, but I mean, we have a group of maybe like four associates that do it at our firm. So I wouldn't call it an anomaly, but it's not as common. Yeah.
Okay. And do you find with the work that you're doing now, being focused on, especially post-pandemic, when I would imagine there's probably a ton of issues that arise from employees who want to work from home, but now it turns out that their employer wants them to come back, and the employees moved out of maybe to a different state. What kind of do you find that level of challenge that you seek is present with the labor and employment
work? Oh, for sure. I mean, it's not any easier. I wouldn't say it's any like easier or less complex than any other practice, at least from what I've seen in my short career. But I mean, it has its complexities. It has its challenges. There are cases that are fairly straightforward, and then there's cases that you can have a class action with hundreds, if not thousands, of potential plaintiffs suing an employer for who knows what. You have your employment issues that are like, well, oh, this person didn't pay me enough money, or there was discrimination, or whatever. Then you have a whole other set of procedural issues that are extremely complex. So definitely challenging. It's not easy. It's definitely something that I like getting up to do every morning. Yeah, no, I enjoy it.
So how do you find that balance between your relationship and making sure that you devote enough time there? I mean, I'd imagine, are you typically the 2,000 hours
roughly
around what you're supposed to bill
right.
annually?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's just billable hours. Then
Mm-hmm.
there's obviously the non-billable things that you need to handle that you can't necessarily pass on the cost. So how do you take that, knowing that you have those requirements over there, and then still make sure that you deliver on the other end to what's your
Bailey.
girlfriend's name?
Bailey.
Bailey.
Yep.
To Bailey.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe you don't. Maybe you're not.
Yeah. No, I mean it took some time to learn, and there are difficult points. I mean, she's in nursing school, so she's going to be a nurse. Also, we'll probably have a busy schedule, so that's going to create its own stressors. But I mean, it just takes time, and that really goes back to why I'm so big on time management and saving time and working out at home versus working out at the gym, because that time adds up. So it gives me more time. I'm typically online for 10 hours a day, which I'll bill 8 in roughly. So you'll have 8 hours of billable work, an hour, 30 minutes to an hour of a break, and then an hour of whatever else you have to do for work.
Mm-hmm.
And
by the way, you're not billing us for this, right?
No. No. I am not.
So does this fit into those 2 hours of non-billable?
No.
Or
No. Actually, again, that goes to another one of my time things. I like to front load my weeks so my Fridays are lighter, so I can do other stuff if I need to, things like this. I can do this on a Friday if I want. But no, it just goes back to time management. I mean, you have to prioritize your job. You have to prioritize the things you truly, truly care about, and truly, doing the things that truly make you happy. And then everything else has to be noise, because why are you doing it if it doesn't make you happy? It's consuming your time. Time's not unlimited. We're here for a very finite amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
We have to figure out how we're going to spend our free time, because there's not much of it. So yeah, I mean, we have a pretty good system. Like I was saying earlier, we have a good system of time management, divvying up house duties when one of us is more or less busy than the other. And yeah, so all the leftover time is devoted to my social life, whether it be her or car friends or whoever, family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the worst thing I know. One of the pieces of feedback that I got from my family was that there was a point in time where I was, and I'm talking immediate family, my dad, mom, and I have 2 sisters, and they stopped inviting me to family gatherings. I'm like, what's going on? And they're like, well, you're busy always. And that's one of the worst things for me to hear, because it's difficult when you have so many activities and so many responsibilities from a career on the career side of things. And I overemphasize those things in importance, and I was just focusing on those to where I didn't really have a lot of social time, to the point where my family stopped inviting me to those things. So that was kind of really a wake-up call for me, because it becomes this weird process that, I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of them struggle from this as well, which is you start your business because you want, I wouldn't even limit it to entrepreneurs, just professionals in general. Like you usually engage in that profession because you want a certain lifestyle to be unlocked. And then the day-to-day starts to take over, and sometimes you can forget the reason why you started, and then you're working to work versus you initially started to work so that you would be able to do all these other things that you enjoy. So it sounds like you're highly aware of that, and you're conscious in your day-to-day to make sure that it sounds like you're constantly running the math on that to make sure that align that properly.
And this sounds really simple. Another kind of aspect to it. So, like I was saying before, like from day one of law school, everybody says, oh, well, lawyers have, this alcoholism rate or this depression rate, or this is one of the most, difficult jobs that you can work, and we have the most depressed people in the world or whatever. I don't know what the statistic is. I took them seriously. I really did. I was like, all right, you have warned me. I've heard it from law school. I've heard it from classmates. I've heard it from people practicing in the law. I've heard it from the news. I've heard it from the American Bar Association. Like, if you keep hearing the same message over and over, like, it's probably true. So I took him seriously. I was like, okay, that's not going to be me. And it's not.
So how do you make that how do you
just-
ensure that didn't happen?
You have to, set boundaries. Say, I'm going to work this many hours a day. Obviously, sometimes deadlines come through, or sometimes you'll get a matter that requires lots of work in a week, and it happens. Overall, my average week, you just have to learn how to set boundaries. You have to learn how to be efficient with your time. And you just have to make it work. I mean, it's not easy, but it's doable.
Yeah, and I know you put a lot of emphasis on those extracurricular things that you like. I met you at a car show.
Yep. Probably a little over a year ago now, I think.
About a year ago.
Yeah.
It was which car show was that?
It was the one at the Drake. The Drake
You're
Hotel,
right,
not the
Drake
Chicago
Hotel.
one, but the one out in the suburbs, wherever it is.
Yes, was it Schaumburg?
Probably.
Maybe?
Yeah.
I remember it was a supercar Sunday, and
Mhm.
there was a lot of guys came out with exotic cars, and we met. I think through Sean. I think Sean
Probably.
introduced us.
Probably. He knows everybody.
Yeah,
so
Sean
probably.
knows everybody. He just got engaged actually.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know if
saw. Yeah.
Yeah, good for them.
Yeah.
It's a long time coming. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I think he did. He staged him getting pulled over.
Yeah, I saw the pictures. I didn't see
Yeah.
the whole story, but yeah, it was something like that.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't try that. It might just
Might backfire.
Yeah, Taylor would just be like really nervous for me, like, oh, he's getting
Yeah.
pulled over. You
Yeah.
know, I've seen the news stories. Like, yeah, I wouldn't try that. But
Yeah.
Sean, a guy like that, he can, no problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I met you there. So you had the Audi RS5. So talk to me about that, because
So
I know.
I had the S4 at that time.
Oh, that's
yeah.
right.
I only had the RS5 for about a year, unfortunately.
Yeah, had past tense,
Yeah.
right? So it's gone now,
Yep,
right?
it is gone.
Okay.
So I had it for about a year. Went down to Tail the Dragon twice with it. Did a couple track days with it. Got plenty of use out of it. Yeah, and it was just time to move on to something else. So
You
I was done with
want to give give a little teaser, because I know you've talked to me about what may be
there's a couple
on the
things
horizon.
out there. I'm a big Audi guy. That's just what I've always liked. Very stoked for them joining F1 in 2026.
Yeah.
Super excited about that. But yeah, I mean, probably I'm looking at one of the R8s, maybe something like that, or the Porsche 911s are also pretty comparable too.
Mm-hmm.
Do everything that I want. They're fun cars that have all-wheel drive. So all season, sports cars that you can drive.
Yeah.
Don't have to put them up or nothing like that. So something like that.
And the brakes don't fade on the track.
Yeah.
I know last time you were having those issues with the
Yeah.
RS5. The brake,
Yeah.
I felt bad. That
Yeah.
was
No, I was
couple
really
weeks
I was
ago.
really bummed. I narrowed the issue down to maybe there were some bubbles in the brake lines or in the brake fluid. Who knows? I don't know. But
Yeah.
I was just kind of
felt
over
bad.
it.
I think you got two sessions in
One.
that day.
Well, because I had basically did a whole new brake job, and which was so bizarre because I did fluid, pads, rotors. Didn't last super long. On the OEM set that I had, that the pads are probably 40,000 miles old. Brake fluid probably never been replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Totally fine for most of the day when it was 100 degrees out.
Of course.
in June. So it's like you can't win for losing. So
Yeah.
it's part of
like
it, though.
defies physics.
Yeah,
You
it-
do all the things that you're supposed to do, and then
yeah, it's part of being in the car, being a car enthusiast. Some days work out, some don't. So
yeah. Do you find that you're able to? I mean, obviously, one of the benefits from being an attorney is obviously the monetary benefit there. One of the highest paying professions. You've got doctors, and I think attorneys are, they're
yeah, I mean it
they're
varies.
out there,
I mean it varies. There are some attorneys who come out of law school. I know people making $40,000-$50,000 a year, and then there are some attorneys who are making millions of dollars doing who knows what. So
Yeah.
it varies.
I've got a buddy who just, what firm is he at? I can't remember the firm he's at. It'll come to me. It's one of the big. It's a big firm.
There's
Like
tons
one
of
of
them.
the.
There's like Kirkland maybe, or
He's at Kirkland
Sidley.
Ellis.
There's some
Yeah,
massive
he's
ones.
at Kirkland Ellis.
Yeah. Okay.
Just $200K
Mhm.
right out of law school.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that's.
Yeah.
That's
It
nasty.
varies. It just depends what you want to do. Then you have public interest lawyers who all obviously do great work, but it's public interest, so you're probably not going to make as much money. Yeah, the thing with lawyers, there's lawyers for every single thing you can think of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it varies.
Yeah, I met a guy who does. He only works on co-branded credit card engagements.
I have
So
no
he
idea
works-
what that means.
Yeah, I didn't know either,
Yeah.
but I thought it might make me sound smart to you,
Yeah,
so that's
no.
why I said it. Yeah.
Did not.
Yeah, he does like you have like a gas station, like a big one, like Shell, and they want to partner with Visa to have their own co-branded credit card. So he puts together those agreements and
I know what you mean now. Okay.
Handles any issues that arise. Really interesting stuff, but it's super niche.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that's all the work he does.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the biggest things. I work with a ton of attorneys, on a day-to-day, and that's one of the biggest things that I like about it. Is just I'm always learning about these practice areas that I didn't even know needed to be a practice area.
Yeah, there's literally every single thing you can think about probably has an attorney somewhere in the system or involved somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. But so I want to ask you about the so as far as the car stuff goes, we met at the car show. Do you? So obviously now the RS5 is gone. You're going to the R8. Is this something that is? I mean, do you feel like if you were in a different profession or a different capacity or at another firm or anything like that, that you wouldn't be able to necessarily follow your car enthusiast dreams? Or
I mean, I've been a car person since probably before I could drive. I've just always enjoyed them. Obviously, when you have more money, you can buy more expensive cars, but I would have been involved some way or shape, form, whatever. Because even the car that I had while I was in law school before I had a job was a Volkswagen GLI.
Oh yeah,
and loved the car. I mean, it wasn't the most expensive car in the world, but I really enjoyed it. It was fun to drive. It was peppy. It's the one car I miss to this day because I didn't appreciate it for what it was when I had it. And this was before I knew anything about cars. So it's the one car that I wish I could buy back, but I can't now because it's worth double what I sold it for.
Is it really?
Yeah. So I sold it for pre-COVID in like 2019. I sold it for like $6,000. Now they're like 13.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Same miles, 100,000 miles. It's absurd. Yeah, no, I've always been into them. So no, I would be involved. Regardless of where I worked, I would have been involved in some way. And for me, it's been a great networking tool too. I mean, I've met you. I've met most of the friends that I talk to regularly just through car meets, car events, going to racetracks, drag strips. For me, it's a really good networking tool too.
Oh, absolutely. And it'll keep the alcoholism at bay.
Yeah, because you can't drink at a car meet.
Yeah, exactly.
you can't drink.
It's frowned upon.
Yeah,
right?
Can't drink at a car meet. When we go to, have you been in the Tail of the Dragon?
I've
before?
never been.
You know what it is?
Never been in the Tail. Yeah, it's down Tennessee, the border between.
Yes. So it's basically a road that stretches between from Tennessee. It starts, I guess, depending where you are. It starts in one side is in Tennessee, the other side is in North Carolina. It's like 11 miles, like 300 turns. It makes a lot of people sick. Pretty intense. So I've been there a couple of times with my buddies, and you can't drink. I mean, there's a restaurant there that serves alcohol, but you can't have more than one, and because you're going to be driving on this crazy road afterwards. So yeah, I mean, it's a great hobby. I'm not up super late. I can get to bed on time when I need to get to bed. Most of the things are Saturday mornings. Yeah, I enjoy it. So.
Yeah, I've heard they really increased their police presence there now because a lot of people are just going out there. It's becoming like a tourist thing, or it used to be like only the cool guys knew about it.
Yeah, no, it still is. I want to say they have their own private, maybe private's the wrong word, but like their own special task force that hangs out up there.
Really?
So, for example, we go up there, a bunch of Volkswagen, so everybody under the Volkswagen umbrella is pretty much invited to this event in April or May. And they actually donate to that local task force thing. So they raise a bunch of money, donate it there, and I think they may have one or two other causes. It's called Wookiees in the Woods. But I know they for sure donate to that task force and maybe one or two other causes.
And what is a task force? What were they assembled to do?
They just hang out on the tail because of the accident rate and so when there's an accident up there, there's also no cell service. So if you're by yourself, you get in an accident. If you fall off the road, whatever. I mean, you're kind of out of luck unless somebody drives by.
I need to bring Elon Musk out there and get some Starlink access.
Yeah, there's no service. Actually, the first time I went up there was a guy in a VW Golf R who blew out a tire, no cell service, and luckily there was another guy that drove him down the mountain a little ways away to get cell service and call a flatbed. So it's kind of risky a little bit, especially if you don't have a spare.
Maybe that's the appeal of it. It's like the adrenaline, not only from carving through the corners, but then also being able to know that if something bad happens, that may be it for you.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Maybe that's an appeal.
Some people push it a little bit too much, unfortunately, and it kind of makes it look a lot more dangerous than it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like any road. It's a public road, so if you drive within your limits, if you obey the speed limit, which is I think 30,
Oh, is
which
it?
is plenty,
Oh, wow.
but which is plenty for
Really?
that road. Yeah, especially
Really?
some of those turns because there are lots of hairpins and stuff like that. So if you don't go crazy, if you drive within your limits, if you drive within your car's limits, I mean it's perfectly safe.
Mm-hmm.
But it's when people start crossing the double yellow lines, or when people start driving too fast, their car fails on and their brakes don't work, and you go off into a ditch. So
yeah, it's all about like just trusting your machine.
Yeah,
and
just don't go crazy.
Not pushing it.
and not pushing yourself.
Which kind of makes me think too, like this whole concept of trust, and like I'd imagine just growing up. I mean, this is the word I would use to describe you. You're kind of like a Renaissance man to me. That's kind of how I think of you.
Never heard of that.
You have many. Yeah, it's like you're doing all this stuff. You're a car enthusiast. You're an attorney. Right, like you did some modeling. You told me about, like
long time ago. A long time ago.
You're modest.
Yeah.
You're modest. Yeah, it's okay, man.
Yeah.
I get it. But so to me, like, I know, like with the work you do on your car, like you're pretty handy and stuff. Like you kind of taught yourself. It sounds like you said when you were in law school, you didn't really know much about cars and.
So yeah, I know about them. I don't really do my own work. I'll do some light stuff here and there, but for most of the stuff that I do, I have a shop do it. I just don't trust myself to work on an expensive car.
And then throw it around a racetrack at 100 miles an hour.
I'm gonna do work myself to save a little bit of money on the back end and mess something up, and then spend even more money on the back end, or sorry, I guess save money on the front end and then mess up, and then spend more money on the back end fixing what I messed up the first time.
Absolutely.
So it's just like I just have someone reputable do it that knows what they're doing. So
yeah.
I know my limits.
You have to.
I know my abilities. I know my limits. So.
Yeah, and that's kind of the common theme that I'm thinking is like, it sounds like for you, like going through, you tried it out at the DEA, decided it wasn't for you, and you go to law school. You become a practicing attorney. Sounds like you said, you thought about quitting a couple times. Is there, like what, I guess, like does faith in your own abilities come into play, or is it like a higher power, or how did you know that not only is this the path for you, but then to stay focused and keep persevering even when things got tough?
So I have to admit, I'm not the most religious person that you'll ever meet. For me, it's a bit. I'm a bit of an odd person here. It's just when I set my mind to doing something, I just do it, and it sounds simple because it is, but I don't know how else to explain it. When I say I'm going to go to law school, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to do it. When I say I'm going to go to work, or when I say I'm going to complete this brief, or when I say I'm going to just do anything, I just do it. And I do whatever I need to do to make sure it gets done. And I accomplish whatever goal I was set to accomplish. So it's just, I don't know. It's a very simple answer to a very complex question, but I don't have any other answer for you.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I ask is I'm just thinking about like trying to compare your story to mine, and like at all of the points where things got tough, or when there was doubt about whether, like, it's just like there's so many things as an entrepreneur. There's so many times where I doubt myself. It's like things go really well, and then some event happens, and I've learned that this is just an inevitable process. There's ebbs and flows. Some event happens, and I'm like, well, damn, is this thing gonna work long term? And like, is this something that I can continue to do? And at those points in times, I've always had this uncertainty about what would happen, but had this faith. I believe in God. I don't know if I'd say religious. I'd say spiritual.
Okay.
Like I'm not really a big organized religion kind of guy, but I believe in God, and I would always think to myself like, somehow it's gonna work out, and that's what would keep me pushing. So I'm curious, like let's talk about that a little bit. You mentioned that you're not the most religious person. Is there something like, I guess I just want to understand and kind of get into your mind, like how do you? Sounds like you said it's simple. You tell yourself you need to do it, and you push forward and do it. Is there something like, I guess, what is your higher power? Is it like, just like do you just trust in your intellect or your intuition, or?
Yeah, I mean, I bet on myself. I know what I'm capable of. Every time, something does get difficult, I look back and see what I've accomplished in the past, and typically I'll have accomplished something in the past that's as difficult, if not more difficult, than whatever it is I'm facing at the present moment. And then you just kind of have to believe in yourself, and just trust yourself to get it done. And I don't have this so much now, but when I was in school, I had this very strange fear of being homeless. I never once was anywhere. I was born in a nice home. Both parents were always there. I've always had, more than enough resources, supplies, food. I mean, never anywhere near poverty. But yeah, I just was always like, well, if I don't do this, how am I going to pay the bills when I get older? And yeah, it was a real motivator for me. It sounds weird because I would never had any legitimate fear of being homeless. But yeah, it was always something that pushed me. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it was that way, but that was always something that was in the back of my mind. Yeah.
Wow.
Very strange.
That's a hell of a motivator. Yeah. Although I will say that's something I've thought about doing. I guess electively, just to choose, like, do I really need all this stuff I have, and could I make it on my own? It's just like maybe like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I just make it,
Yeah, just see what happens.
You open Pandora's box, so we're going there now. It's something I thought about. Like, is this something I could do? But I could definitely see that being a motivator. Like, how do you create the environment, or how do you create the necessary ingredients to make sure that never happens? Yeah. And it sounds like you kind of you really put a lot of faith in your own abilities, and the way you did that is by kind of benchmarking yourself against other experiences that you've had, other events that you've been able to overcome, and then comparing it to the current event at hand and saying, like, this is relatively minor compared to X,
not
Y, Z.
Even that. So it's not so much that I'm saying, well, this is minor. It's more me saying that I've done this before. This isn't new. Like, this level of challenge isn't new, and I've done it before, and I can do it now. So that it's not so much trying to minimize whatever is in the present. It's more of me telling myself that I've been here, done it, accomplished it. I can do it again. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that's a learned trait, or is that something that it's like, growing up, mom and dad, did they instill that?
It's kind of happened. I don't know. I've always been a very logical person. So some people will say it's a fault that I'm not the most emotional person. Sometimes I am, but most of the time I'm a very logical person. I approach stress in a very logical way. I approach all types of emotions in a very logical way. So no, it's just kind of the natural response that I've always had to stressful situations. So I've always, said, okay, well, this situation is very stressful. I'm very confused. I might not know what to do, and then I'll look back and say, oh, well, I was in a similar situation before, not identical, but similarly difficult, or more difficult. And I said, I've gotten through something similar before. I can do it again. I can do it again and again and again and again as long as I need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I knew there was something I liked about you.
Oh, really?
We deal with stress in a similar way.
Yeah.
For me, it's just almost a recognition that most of the time stress is external and there's nothing I can really do about it. So it's just looking within to find out what levers I can pull, the things that I do have control over, and only focusing about those and letting the rest be what it is.
Right.
Because there's so many things that you could just worry yourself with. And, it takes a strong person with a lot of mental fortitude to be able to break down that stress into logical steps that need to be taken in order to get you to where you need to be.
And that goes back to what I was mentioning earlier. So you say, well, controlling the things you can control. You can add that to the list of things you should focus on. Controlling the things you can control, things that make you happy and things you care about. Even in your situation, what you were saying, well, when I'm stressed, just control the things that you can control, and everything else is what it is. Everything else is noise. Focus on the things you can control, and it makes for a less stressful situation, I think, because you feel more in control.
Yeah, I'd imagine that. How would that concept tie into being a young attorney? I'd imagine you're invited out to social events, maybe even with other attorneys, or just different networking aspects. I know that a part of being effective is you have to start the way you move into becoming a partner is you have to start generating your own work, building your own book of business, right? I think you guys call it making it rain, right? You got to be a rainmaker.
Yeah, there's certain so from what I've heard, obviously I'm not a partner, but yeah, there's certain partners that are the rainmakers that bring in lots of clients. All partners probably have to have a certain amount of clients. But yeah, some partners are just better at it than others, or have more clients than others. So everybody fits in the firm some way, shape, or form. I mean, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses.
Do you think that'll be more so that you'll be more of the rainmaker kind of?
I don't know, to be honest with you. It's not something I put a whole lot of work in. So for me, I'm approaching my career kind of in a segmented way. Like right now, I'm learning how to be a good attorney, and just learning how to do the work very well, how to write very well, how to be persuasive in my writing, how to be persuasive in arguments, and the whole, building the book of business thing. It's in the background for sure. Like it's something I think about. But for me, it's networking. Networking is essentially just making friends and getting to know people.
Don't overcomplicate it, right?
Yeah, I mean that's what it is. So on that side, like I know no one's going to give me business right now. I'm 28 years old. I'm a fourth year associate. No one's gonna, give me some massive account to work on at my law firm. So what I do focus on is just getting to know people, going to meet people, planting those seeds, developing genuine relationships and friendships. Not with the hope of turning it into business, but just with the hope of getting to know people and having beneficial relationships. Because if I think anybody goes and just develops a relationship just for the intent of generating business, it's not going to be unique. It's not going to be genuine, right? So yeah, I just focus on getting out there to meet people, getting to know people from all different backgrounds and things like that. So
yeah, and I'd say you do a really good job with that. One of the things that people overcomplicate it. They just, this whole concept of networking, I've really had to become fairly proficient at networking. That's really how a lot of business is generated for my company. It's one of the things that people have a lot of anxiety about, especially newer, younger professionals. I won't even limit it to younger professionals. I think people who are new to that role of having to now go out and meet people who could potentially create business opportunities for them, it can be a little bit intimidating. But the biggest thing you said, you hit the nail on the head, is just going out and making friends. Like, really, it comes down to that, like being authentic, bringing a fresh perspective, and just being there to listen to someone and offer feedback when it's asked for, and just to be just like we started learning this stuff when we were in kindergarten, like how to make friends. You find common interests, you explore those interests together and passions, and you're authentic. Boom, there it is. And that's how business is the same way. A lot of those same skills that you learn back in kindergarten translate. But it becomes, people oversimplify the formula because they think because it's business, it has to be done in a different way. And they try to, formalize the process of networking. And really, when you think of networking and building relationships as a process, you've missed the point. And you wind up creating relationships that are just transactional. You're not building relationships that both parties get a tremendous amount of value from, like you said, those beneficial relationships.
And yeah, you just have to be genuine about it, because I mean, as you get older, obviously the people that I'm friends with now, they're all younger, but as they get older, they'll become more influential, or more, they'll have more control or power wherever they work. And how many times has someone hired a big law firm to do their work because they saw an ad in the paper or saw them on a billboard? I mean, it might happen, but a lot of the times it's like, oh, I have an issue. It's like, oh, let me call up my buddy Jay. He does that work. He's talked to me about it a little bit. He seems pretty good. Let me just give him a call and see what he knows. And that's how, I think that's probably how it happens most of the time. Like I said, I don't have a ton of experience in it, but that would be my guess.
Absolutely.
Is that it's just based on people and how well you know them and how much they trust you. And
and that's a very well-rounded way to look at it, and that's kind of always how I've viewed you. Is you approach things very pragmatically. You have this perspective that I think is unique, and especially, I mean, what's impressive about you is I believe, punching above your weight class. I mean, you're a young attorney who is not, you're not shy to come to the table and present things that like you said, you pick arguments that you can win.
Yeah.
You bring that same vibe, that same feeling to any conversation that I've seen you in. Is I'd imagine it translates into when you're working with your clients as well, as you're knowledgeable about the things that you are knowledgeable about, and you highlight those items, and items that you may not be as knowledgeable about, you bring in someone who is. So that's always impressed me about you, but I've got to imagine it probably has to be somewhat intimidating to be in a space where it's dominated by a lot of older. Someone told me this they coined this term. I don't know if they coined it, but they introduced it to me, which is in the legal profession, probably accounting, probably a lot of professions. You got a lot of the male pails and stales, right?
I've not heard that one.
Yeah, all the ales, male, pale, and stale. So you're in a male, pale, stale environment, right? Like it's dominated by most predominantly middle-aged to older white men, right? So how do you I'd imagine it has to be somewhat unnerving when you're at social functions, and like what is the proper etiquette? What are the proper, like you talked about alcoholism being a big factor in the legal profession. How do you control your how much alcohol you'll partake in, consumption you'll take in when you're at a social event and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, so just being in that environment generally, so I've always been in like PWI, so predominantly white institutions, and I'm biracial, so my mom's white too. But to a lot of people, they wouldn't know that.
I never knew that. No, I never knew that.
I think a lot of black people would know that because they're around lots of black people and they'll recognize that I'm mixed with something. But I bet to a lot of white people, they'd have no idea. I mean, they see my brown skin. That's the end of the story. So I've always been in PWI since I was really young. I went to pretty much an all-white grammar school, high school, college was pretty diverse, and then law school was pretty much white. So it's never really been something I had to think about as far as like how to conduct myself too much. But being there's a value in being around people that look like you. I don't know if everybody knows that. At least I believe that. So I mean, it presents its challenges. You always kind of have to be a little hyper aware of how you're being treated versus your peers if you don't look like your peers, which I don't. I want to say 5% of lawyers are black. Something
Is
like
it that low? Really?
Yeah, I don't know if that's lawyers or big law lawyers. Whatever the number is, it's low. So I mean, yeah, you have to be aware of those things. Thankfully, I've never really been put in a situation where it's been an issue. Being in Chicago, I think people are also a little bit more progressively minded, about diversity and things like that, which is nice. But yeah, I mean, you have to be aware of it. Yeah, it hasn't presented too many issues yet, but I do work with, I'm starting to work with some more diverse attorneys, which is nice. And fun fact, actually, so a lot of the younger attorneys are becoming more diverse, so it's most of the older attorneys that are generally older white males, and a lot of firms are doing a really good job with bringing in diversity. But obviously you can't have diversity at the higher levels because it didn't exist when they were all younger, if that makes sense. You can't hire a first-year 55-year-old black attorney because they don't exist, right? So a lot of the younger attorneys are becoming more and more diverse, which I think is really, really important. Our chairman is actually a black man, which is awesome to me because he actually came in, swung by my office a couple weeks ago, and it was just nice to see.
Did he give you like the head nod? Hey, you know what I
mean? Yeah. No, he's a cool guy. He's a cool guy. He's called me once or twice before after an incident happened in Chicago that we had to discuss. Nothing bad. But no, he's a really nice guy. But it's nice to see the diversity even at the top because it is so rare. But at the bottom end of things, like my generation, there's definitely more and more diverse attorneys coming in. And in my short career, I've actually learned more from female attorneys than I have male attorneys. Most of my higher up partners have been male attorneys, but the people you learn from as a junior associate are your mid-level associates, right? So the people that are probably 5 to 10 years older than me. Most of them have been female attorneys, and they've all been awesome. You know, I've learned so much from female attorneys, and a lot of people probably would surprise a lot of people. So yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely going in the right direction. And people, especially in Chicago, I think people are aware of the need for more diversity. So,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about the fact that, like you said, the 55-year-old first-year attorney, black attorney, doesn't exist.
That's why there's no diversity up top, because it didn't exist when they were coming in.
But the 5%, I mean, that just seems that's concerning. Is that?
Don't quote me on it, but it is single digits.
Yeah.
I want to say it's no more than 6.
Yeah.
Or 7. That might be just for Big Law too. Yeah.
No, we won't crucify you for being give or take 5%.
Yeah.
But even that, I mean, it's low. Let's say it's 15% even. That's a I'm sure there's other black attorneys who would like to be in the space. Why do you think that is? Why the percentage is so low?
I mean, it's the same reason it's low in a lot of white collar professions. I mean, you have, and I know a lot of people have opinions on it, but I mean, so my grandmother picked cotton.
Really?
That's not common of a white family. I mean, it just isn't. Like when my grandmother was picking cotton, or I think I actually just learned, I had an uncle who passed probably 10, 15 years ago. He was maybe in his 70s. He was responsible for kind of doing what Harriet Tubman did. He brought dozens of black people up from the South and gave them jobs. So while your grandparents probably, or people from that generation, were sitting here trying to fight for freedom and fight for equal rights and all that nonsense, like our non-white peers, I'm getting very tongue-tied right now. Our white peers or our non-black peers, their grandparents were buying homes, they were getting degrees, they were doing whatever they were doing at the time to increase their net worth. And obviously, if you buy a home in 1920, 1930, and your family held on to that property, it's worth. How much is it worth now? Like,
absolutely.
Our ancestors were not buying homes. We were trying to, not get sprayed by hoses.
Right.
So
at the least, right?
that over time, I mean, you have to deal with that at some point. And now I think we finally are dealing with it. Unfortunately, it's later. I mean, I think that's why at the older levels you just didn't have it. It's because we just, black people on average, just had different things to worry about. We couldn't go to school. We couldn't do those things to advance our careers. So we were 50, 60, 70 years behind.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like there's another one of these videos I watched. There was a teacher, a gym instructor, and he had his kids lined up. And he's like, all right.
I know what video you're talking about. Yeah.
He had them run to the end of the field, and he's like, wait, before you start, I want everyone who has 2 parents at home, I want you to take 10 steps forward. Okay, well, everyone who is, if you are, he started listing out all of these things and had them step forward. Now and these kids, and it turned out like all these were advantages that all the white kids had, right? And then like all the black kids are behind. And he's like, all right, we're gonna now start the race. And these kids now are like 50 steps ahead, starting at the race. And he's like, I'm gonna have you guys run the race. And he's like, and those kids back there, they would probably dust you. But guess what? Do you think they will? Who do you think is gonna win the race?
Right.
I'm like, well, we'll win the race. Like, yeah, and this is exactly how racism has evolved in the United States and the Western world, is that there's a disadvantage because of the time scale that things are being done at. So I guess I would ask you then is, given the fact that there's, I think we agree that there's a significant advantage from being able to start anything earlier. Time value is essential. I mean, you're an attorney, so time is everything. So do you believe in reparations and the ability to create programs that try to level the playing field?
So whenever someone mentions reparations, I always think of the Dave Chappelle skit. Have you seen it? You know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen that one.
Dave Chappelle did a skit on his show years ago with reparations. Check it out when you get a chance. But no, I don't know if reparations would be the right thing to do. Just handing out checks. I mean, we kind of saw how that worked with COVID, and I think a lot of people would probably say it didn't work as well as it should have.
I'd say so.
But I don't think reparations would be a good idea. One, it sounds bad, but I would say there's probably a bit of a lack of financial literacy among the broader financial or among the broader Black communities. So
absolutely.
I think it would be better to. And this is very difficult to do, but you have to focus on education and opportunities, right? I mean, you can't just give someone cash and expect them to improve their lives. It's just not going to happen. You have to just improve the education and opportunity for people who have a lot of Black folks and people who haven't had the same opportunities. Now, I grew up pretty privileged, just to put that out there. So my dad didn't, though. My mom grew up in a pretty decent household. It was okay. But my dad grew up on the west side of Chicago, so he went through the full, impoverished Black experience.
Oh, yeah. What neighborhood? I'm curious.
I think it was called the K-Town or something like that.
Oh,
Somewhere on the west side.
Yeah, K-Town, because all the streets, they start with K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you grew up in that area.
Don't ask me to name any of them, but
Yeah.
I do know that. I didn't know they all start with
so
K.
He grew up over there and
Okay.
experienced all that. But no, I mean, I think, it's a difficult problem, I think, for any politician or policy to solve, right? So you can say, and we read lots of cases about this in school, like, how do you equalize education? Is it more money? Maybe, but like, well, you can dump more money into it, but if the teachers don't care, I mean, the money's not going to do anything if the teachers don't care, if the parents of the kids don't care, if the kids have to, focus on dodging bullets on the way home from school, like, more money into a school is not going to change anything. So I was actually thinking about this today. It's a very difficult issue for like politicians or policy or law to fix, because at the end of the day you have to change the way people feel, and change the way people view Black people and minorities and disenfranchised populations. You can throw all the resources, all the money at it if you can, but if people don't genuinely want to see Black folks do better, if people don't genuinely want to value Black folks the same way everybody's valued, I mean, you can't legislate feelings. You can't legislate someone's heart to be in the right spot.
Right.
So it just takes time. I mean, I know there's obviously a lot of policy initiatives to try and improve those efforts, but it just takes time, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think you just have to change the social climate of how these things are viewed.
Mm-hmm.
You have to humanize Blacks. Unfortunately, there's, like in the 80s and 90s, all the Black exploitation
Mm-hmm.
films. Some people watch those movies
Mm-hmm.
and from those movies took on this persona or this perspective that this is how most Black individuals act.
What's that? I mean,
and
that's,
behave.
Yeah, that still goes on today. I mean,
Right.
It's unfortunate, but I mean, where do you see most Black people today? Like I don't want to say the news, but most people, like, so I went to Notre Dame, for example, great school, obviously, but there are a lot of people at Notre Dame, a lot of students at Notre Dame that had never had a Black friend before going there. So, and this is more so in the undergrad body. So if you have never had a personal experience with a Black person or actually had a relationship, friendship with a Black person, you've only seen Black people on the field or on the basketball court or on the news for going to jail or in a rap video.
Right.
I mean, it's the truth for most people, and
because that's what sells, which is
I mean,
maybe that's a larger issue that's what's selling.
And it's circular.
Like, how many people are going to watch this because they see a Black attorney who's excelling, he's successful in his career? Like, how many people are going to tune in because of that headline versus, this brand new rap video?
Yeah.
Or, hey, this guy's a D1 athlete and he's got an amazing slam dunk. Like, what's going to be the split between who watches those videos?
Yeah, I mean that's the unfortunate truth. It's part of a much bigger problem because, I mean, why are those things popular? I mean, why do people like to see, or why do people want to click on articles about Black people getting arrested or shot or killed? Why do people want to click on, music videos on YouTube about violence and drugs? Like, it's a huge problem. You can't address it in one podcast, but yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, it's difficult to change that narrative about Black people, and that's the majority of the exposure to Black people that a lot of people have.
Agreed.
So it's unfortunate.
Was there ever any push or preference within your family to identify with either your white side or your Black side?
I get asked that a bit. I would probably say that not within the family, but more within yourself, myself, and because we're a bit of a different like subset of. And I obviously don't like dividing people by race, but we're in a different subset. So like white people don't see you as black, and especially this was more impactful when I was a kid, because when you're a kid, kids don't know any better, right? Kids just say whatever's on their mind. They don't know how to look at people differently from them or treat people, whatever. So, because you're coming up and white people know you're not white, right? And black people know you're not black because I don't look full black. It's obvious, right? So yeah, I mean, it is a little difficult. It can be difficult because you kind of don't really fit in anywhere. Like you don't have my people, you know, like a lot of people would say. The older you get, it's not as bad because people just learn how to treat people better. But yeah, I mean, you just have to be proud of who you are as a whole. I mean, I'm proud of my black ancestors that, you know, were slaves and were taken from West Africa on a boat and went through all that stuff and that they had to go through. And I'm proud of my European ancestors that also emigrated mostly from Italy and had nothing when they came here and didn't speak English. And so you have to be proud of both of them, and they both make who you are. So, yeah.
So it's more so. It sounds like the overlying theme or the underlying theme is that the labels themselves are. You don't necessarily subscribe to the labels. You try to view yourself as Tevin.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I have certain parts of my life I can identify with the black experience, and certain parts I can't. I'm not ashamed to say that. I think some people might look down on that, or some people might be ashamed to say it, but it's what I am. I can't change it. Sorry, I am what I am. You know?
Yeah. Well, I've never heard that perspective before and that's a perspective that I share with you. Because growing up, I remember. So I am full black. Well, that's a separate issue. Because is anyone really full anything?
Yeah, everybody's got a little something in them.
You got a little something in you. But you know, as far as I know, you know, my family members are all black. My mom she has a very fair complexion, which is even lighter than mine, which is where I get my color from. But
because I'm probably just about as dark as you, slightly different tone.
Yeah, different. Yeah, different tone. I'm more what they call the high yellow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The high yellow.
Yeah.
You know, we're creative, that's for sure, with our terminology. But it was one of those things where I remember in high school there was just same thing as you. You know, this.
Where'd you go to high school?
Lincoln Way East in Frankfurt. Predominantly white. Yeah, predominantly white. And it was almost, I think, the reverse of what you said, if I'm hearing you properly, because I would have my white friends would say, "You're not black." They'd say like, "You're not black."
Because you didn't act black.
Because I didn't act black, right? Yeah. They're like, "You're not black."
And I put that in quotes for people who can't see it.
Absolutely. Exactly. Yeah. Right?
I don't want people.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So it's like this was a strange thing to me because I didn't understand what acting black meant. The first up until 4th grade, I went to a predominantly black school, a private school in South Holland, and so I encountered black people who acted in a myriad of different ways, right? So I didn't know what acting black meant. So they're like, "Yeah, you're not black," and I didn't understand it, and it kind of bothered me. I'm like, "Well," and then a lot of my black friends, they would say, like, "You're white. You're not like one of us."
Yeah.
So it was strange because it's like I had a similar experience where I didn't really feel like I had a group that I could identify with. So,
which is so self-limiting, especially when it comes from the black side, right? Because when even you or me, when I was hanging around my black friends, I didn't act a certain way, so I wasn't, quote unquote black. And it's like, well, no, I go to school, I do my work, I get good grades, I perform on the track. What's not black about that?
Yeah.
And am I supposed to like be disrespectful? Am I supposed to not go to class? Am I supposed to have
those same things from those blaxploitation films?
Yeah.
It's like even my black friends bought into that. That's what was disturbing about it, because it was like they weren't able to see the texture and the nuance. It was just being black was this, this monolithic idea of this kind of persona,
Right.
and that really bothered me. So I was just like, I kind of did my own thing. That's when I got into tech. It's like, well,
And it's so self-limiting because people think, or at least a large portion, unfortunately, I think of black people think that is being black, like, and that being a good student or being a good employee is not being black.
right,
Like, well, then what's the alternative?
right.
And why do you want to be the
And
alternative?
that's what the problem is.
Yeah.
Therein lies the problem.
So it's that's why I said it just takes time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of progress. I think it's getting better. I mean, I think it is. So
Yeah. And the overall message here is that it's, well, one, people have to realize that the nuance in personalities and can't subscribe those labels, especially incorrect labels to people. And two, just like what we talked about before, even with networking, just showing up genuine. If showing up in a genuine fashion, being authentic, and not worrying about trying to subscribe to a particular label or fit that label in a way that you believe will make people accept you. That makes you wonder, the people who are trying to put you in those labels, are those really the individuals that you want to have in your court? I mean, those people aren't in your tribe. They're just...
Well, when you're a kid, you want to be cool, right?
Oh, yeah.
So during your formative years and you're in high school, in grade school, whatever, you want to be cool and you want to be accepted. That's what everybody strives for. But like as you get older, you realize maybe those people aren't for me, or maybe that lifestyle is not for me. And then, well, am I the only one that's like me? That's fine. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm living how I want to live. And then once you learn that, you gravitate towards people that are actually like you and I, for example. Like, I've met so many more like-minded people like me. So yeah, it's part of coming up. Unfortunate. I think it still persists quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very anti-violent rap music lately. I think it's just very damaging to the black community. I think that's part of it too. I mean, you're just constantly maintaining this image. Going to school, getting good grades isn't black, but rap music about killing other black men is black. Like, how does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, that's a disturbing part about it. I think when you look at the idea as a whole, it's, the whole concept of rap music. I think a lot of people don't, and I'll put it out there and say, I'm a big fan of all different kinds of music. Rap music is one genre that I do enjoy.
No, I like it. It's just certain themes and tones I don't appreciate, but I appreciate it as a whole.
Yeah, sure. I agree, but I think a lot of people don't, especially a lot of people in the older generation, they don't even give rap music a chance, just because they hear that familiar bass heavy and they're like, this is garbage, this is about violence, this is about... I mean, you've got guys, there's a guy named King Los. King Los, I believe he's in California. I'll have to look it up. No, he's not. Baltimore. He's in Baltimore. And his lyric, I mean, he's got this, the traditional rap beats, the bass heavy, the hi-hat, all of that. But I've learned probably more about history from him than I've learned in any lecture.
I have to check him out.
Because all of his music is about, I mean, he talks about oppression, he talks about the black experience, he talks about some of the, I mean, and he'll sometimes point a finger back at the black community and say, like, hey, this is why some of these things are happening. This is the root of some of these issues is because we do X, Y, Z, we do this. It's not all of his content, but everything he puts out there, he swears, uses profanity, but come on, like, people watch rated R movies and they don't look at it any differently than, this is just part of art and people expressing themselves in a way that's most impactful and really trying to drive home certain points and themes. So, yeah, it's like, I hate the fact that people don't give it a chance. My mom is one of those people. She hates rap music. Always has. She's like, it's garbage.
Even when
it's
she was coming up?
Even when she was coming up. Yep. Yeah.
Because a lot of the stuff, I mean, obviously my dad exposed me to a lot of the stuff from like the 80s, early 90s. A lot of it back then, at least, was a lot more storytelling and talking more about what you're going through, what you're living through, rather than I got got this gun and I'm gonna go shoot, you know, you
Oh,
or your
yeah.
mom. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I just can't stand.
Absolutely.
So a lot of it was uplifting even back then. I mean, a lot of it was feel good music. Not all of it. Some of it talked about difficult things people live through, but it never. I don't want to say never, but my dad didn't listen to a lot of the stuff, and I wasn't exposed to a lot of the music that. What do I want to say? That, like, I don't want to say promoted violence, but made it. There's a word for it.
Glorified?
Glorified. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
That, like, glorified the violence. Like, that's just the stuff that I can't do. There's tons and tons of positive, you know, influential, feel good, you know, rap music that you can learn a lot from, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's one of your favorite artists right now?
Right now, so I've been a Kanye fan since I was a kid. I know
Okay.
he's super controversial.
Yeah.
Don't really agree with a lot of things he's doing, but growing up, his music really, it was stuff that I could relate to because it wasn't the violent stuff. It wasn't the stuff about dealing drugs. It was just about life and believing in yourself and, you know, trusting yourself and working hard, and, you know, it was all about all the good stuff back then, like college dropout, graduation, late registration. I mean, the graduation is probably one of my favorites. I still listen to it all the time. And it's just feel good music that just makes you feel that you can accomplish anything. That's what Kanye was about for so long.
Yep.
A lot of people don't know what he's about now. He is
Yeah,
Kanye.
you know what? But he's a smart guy. My theory is he does a lot of the things he does to capture the attention of the media.
Yeah.
Whenever he's gonna drop a new album, that's when he does something crazy.
Yeah.
He's not crazy.
Yeah.
He is feeding on the environment that we've created as a society, the environment that promotes, you know, people just going out there and doing crazy things and doing things that are you know, controversial or go against the grain of traditional, you know, Western culture. Those are the things he does, and he creates a buzz, and it works every time.
Yeah.
It's just like a cash. I think he just he surpassed. Did he hit the billionaire mark?
Oh,
I think he did.
Yeah.
I think he did with when he purchased Adidas. I think purchased Yeezy. Right?
Maybe, I don't know. I don't keep up with that
yeah.
side of it too much, but yeah, I know he's talked about the billionaire status, which is cool. He touts that he's the richest black man. I don't know if the world or in America or something like that. So
something. I think he's probably pretty high up there.
Yeah.
He's got to be. I know him and Jay-Z were kind of neck and neck for a little while.
Yeah.
But back to your comment about his music, I think what did it for me. I'm a big Kanye fan as well. What did it for me is that, well, one, he's a lyricist. He's what I would call a lyricist. He's not like, you know, and I think there's a space for all kinds of art forms, even like the, you know, stupid mumble rap. Okay, I shouldn't call it. No, I'm going to call it what it is. It's pretty stupid. I'm not going to lie. But there's a space even for that because it's art and it's expression. But Kanye is a true lyricist. He's someone who he's talking about lived experiences, and he's using, I don't know if you have noticed even in his music, it's always he's sampling different. Like, he loves the human voice. He treats the human voice like an instrument. So he always creates different samples from the human voice, and the backdrops of a lot of his songs. You'll hear it's like, oh, that's someone singing, or that's like whatever it may be. But one of the things that cemented for me his status was when he did the Through the Wire rap right after his car accident, and then he created a rap track while having his jaw. It's so shut.
That's wild.
Like, that was, that was incredible.
I mean, and so I started listening to him like I said while I was young, and he was always an underdog, which I identified with quite a bit. So I don't know how much you know about his story, but he was a producer first, making beats for everybody. Nobody thought he could rap, right? So he's just a producer. He's not a rapper. He can't rhyme. He can't flow, whatever. I mean, look at him now. So he started rapping. He did College Dropout, saved a lot of the good beats for himself. People thought it was going to fail. Obviously, it worked out for him. But what I liked, especially back then, a lot of his music was just about believing in yourself, right? So, and I identified as an underdog because when I was younger. So when I was younger, like I said, I was a black kid in a predominantly white institution in school. And I was always shorter than everybody. I'm only about 5'8" now, and I was always shorter than all my peers.
Hey man,
so
one day you might get the growth spurt one day.
But at the time, that meant I wasn't as good at sports, right? So for me, I was the underdog in that sense. Was like, oh, I'm the small one, or might not be as fast, but I'm going to work hard and accomplish it. And as you grow older, that can still travel with you. So as I grew older and sports faded out and academics came in with law school, I wasn't the best reader. I wasn't the best academic, but I'm going to work hard and I'm going to make it work. And that's what Kanye stood for, and that's why I really appreciated his music while I was younger. I don't think I appreciated his messages as much when I was younger, but over time, just listening to the words, listening to the music, it kind of what's the word? There's a phrase for it, but I kind of absorbed it over time by just listening to it. I think subconsciously, and then the older I got, the more I could appreciate the messages, and I'm like, oh yeah, that made a lot of sense. Why I gravitated towards.
Yeah, he's one of those people that you go back and you learn something new from his music every time.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting close to the end here. Give me your top 2 impact items that you'd like to tell to other people to keep them focused, keep them humble, keep them driven towards accomplishing their goals. What are the 2 highest impact things you think you could say?
I think I have one good one, and you'll understand why it's one. I've mentioned it, but figure out what makes you happy in life and what you appreciate and what you enjoy in life. Everything else is noise. That can be difficult to figure out sometimes, but figure out like the main 3, maybe 4 things in life you really enjoy, that you really want to spend money on, whether, like for me, one of them's cars. It could be your family relationships, it could be traveling, whatever. Everything else is noise. Ignore everything else. Do that. Focus on your work that brings in your money, your career, whatever. And I think you'll be, I think that's a major, as DJ Khaled would say, it's a major key. Yeah, just focus on the things that matter. And it sounds very cliche, but I think a lot of people get sidetracked in stuff that just doesn't matter. And it consumes your emotions, it consumes your time, consumes your finances. So yeah, you have to preserve all that for the stuff that matters.
Agreed. Couldn't have said it better myself, man. Thanks for coming on.
Definitely.
I'm glad we got the chance to talk a little bit more and get to know you better. And I met you a little while ago, but every time I talk to you, it's refreshing.
Definitely.
It's like, you ever seen those back when we had the double A's, they introduced the rechargeable double A's. You threw them in the charger.
Yeah,
and
they never worked, but yeah.
They never worked, but but you're different than that.
Oh,
you recharge the battery, man. Every time I talk to you, you work. Yeah, exactly. You're like a smartphone, man. You plug it in and you're at 100%. So
lithium-ion battery.
Absolutely. So we got to make sure we do this more often, man. But
definitely.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and good luck to you with all your future endeavors. You won't need the luck because you've got the determination, you've got the trust in your own abilities. But yeah, if you need anything,
of course,
always reach out.
Definitely. Same goes to you.
Good deal, man.
Good.